So I'm going to look at the different types of errors that can occur when you are dealing with suspense accounts. And it is worth emphasizing that the variation in error types is quite significant, as you shall see. So just to very quickly recap an earlier slide from the first video on suspense accounts, this is your accounting process, and you've got all these different stages at which an error can occur. So at absolutely any stage, starting with the first stage, if an error occurs, it's going to have a consequential knock-on effect all the way through to getting your trial balance prepared. So you're the person who has to address this, and you basically have to fix the problems. So I want to look at the first kind of type of error, where you have an error in the daybook or the personal ledgers. So we're looking at these first three general activities. So you may have a transaction with incorrect values, you may record it incorrectly in the daybook, or you may incorrectly enter it in a personal ledger. So just to look at that. So here's an example of the sales daybook with 3 transactions recorded. And this sales daybook, everything has been done correctly. So you can see at the individual transaction level, the gross amount, the VAT amount, the net amount, they all add up correctly. So 246, the gross, this is the sum of the VAT and the net. So the values have been entered correctly. The crosstalks, okay, the individual values when added up, all match up nicely. So the gross is equal to the sum of the VAT and the net. And the debits and credits therefore will be perfectly well done. So your debits will equal your credits. This value here will be a debit in the debtors control account. And these 2 values will be credits, one in the VAT account and one in the sales account, and you can see that the sum of these two, 1119.3, matches the total debit. So that's all very good. Everything should be as it should. Let's look at a scenario where a mistake occurs. So in this similar looking sales daybook, we've got one error where a value was entered incorrectly. You can see the correct value was 196.8. and it was written in as 198.6, so transposition error. We've swapped around the position of the number 6 and number 8. Now the consequence of that is that in this transaction line here, the 160 and the 3680 adds up to 196.80, which is not what we have here. So therefore, this column will not match the sum of those other columns. So the crosstalks won't match, which means that my debits 1121.1 is not equal to the sum of my credits. The credits in total will be 1119.3, but our debit will be 1121.1. So we have debits and credits not matching in the nominal ledger. Okay, so if you think then of your trial balance, the debits will be greater than the credits, so your trial balance debit column will have a larger total than your trial balance credit column. Now we'll have a look at an example to see the type of scenario. This is a question that was handed out as part of the suspense account package, but I haven't recreated on the next screen. So example 1. So this is daybook data for a particular month, and in each transaction there is a note about the transaction. So you've got the notes here. Each transaction has an error. Okay, so it's a particularly incompetent bookkeeper who prepared this sales daybook, and you're asked for each of the individual transactions identify the answer to the following questions. Does the total gross value equal the sum of the VAT plus net values? So the gross value, whatever's in this column, is that matched by the sum of these 2 columns? Okay, and based on your answers to that question, identify which transactions give rise to total debits in the nominal ledger not equaling total credits in the nominal ledger, and then state what you have to do to fix the personal ledgers, if any. So let's have a look at this question on the screen. So the first one there, B. Smith, 615, 105 and 510. So this invoice should have been entered as 500 net, VAT of 115 and gross of 615. Okay, so we entered 510 net and 105 net. Now, first question, does the total gross value equal the sum of the VAT plus net? Well, gross is 615, this plus this equals 615. So the answer to that question is yes, it does. Okay, there are mistakes, but the debit values match the credit values. So that first question is a positive. Now, based on your answer to the preceding question, identify which transactions give rise to total debits in the nominal ledger, not equaling total credits in the nominal ledger. Well, if debits match credits, okay, that means that your trial balance will balance. Okay, so even though figures are slightly out, they kind of compensate. The debits match the total credits. So that won't affect the suspense account. I mean, there is a correction required, but we can say that because debits match credits, the suspense account will not be required. Okay, so let's look at the second transaction, C. Dennehy. So one item was omitted from the total of this invoice. The net amount omitted was €30 and the related VAT was €690. Now, just looking at what we've got in there, we've got a gross of 1,210, a VAT of 210, and net sales of 1,000. Now again, this total here is equal to the sum of these two. So again, it's like the last one. Does the total gross value equal the sum of the VAT plus net? Yes, it does. Okay, so that means that total debits match total credits. And does that give rise to a situation where total debits in the nominal ledger don't equal total credits in the nominal ledger? No. Again, once the debit value matches the sum of the credit values, the nominal ledger will balance and the trial balance will balance. There's something missing from the invoice, so that invoice should be an extra amount and the VAT should be an extra amount and the net should be an extra amount. But again, that can be dealt with without using a suspense account. Okay, invoice number 3. The gross value of this invoice has been incorrectly totaled. It should read 123. So we wrote in gross value of 132. Again, this transposition error where we swapped the values around. We got the VAT column correct and the net column correct. Now, here's one where the gross total is greater than the sum of the VAT and net. So the debits do not equal the credits. Okay, remember the rule here is debit whatever's in this column and credit whatever is in these other columns. So here's one that the answer to question 1, does the total gross equal the sum of the VAT plus net? No, it doesn't. So that's a problem one there, the D. Murphy one. And that means that the trial balance will not balance because debits are greater than credits. Okay, so we will have a suspense account as a result of this error here. Okay, now, E. Lenihan. Okay, so the invoice should have been entered in the personal account of E. Lenan rather than E. Lenihan. Okay, let's just check though the debits and credits. So 363 is matched by 63 plus 300. So the total gross value is equal to the sum of VAT plus net. Okay, so debits will match credits. It's gone into the wrong individual person's account, but it will not affect the trial balance. The trial balance will balance, okay, because debits match credits. So it doesn't affect the trial balance. We just have to take it out of E. Lenihan's account and put it into E. Lenan's account. But remember, personal ledgers are not what are shown in the trial balance. Personal ledgers are kind of memorandum accounts. They just keep track of individual customers and individual suppliers. So it doesn't, you don't see the balance of an individual customer in the trial balance. You see the debtors control or the creditors control, which is like the sum of all customers and sum of all suppliers. Finally, F. Stevenson. So the note here, the net total value was incorrectly entered in the gross column and the gross total was incorrectly entered in the net column. So you can see the gross column contains 1,000, which should have gone over in the net column, and this value here should have gone over in the gross column. Now again, if you look at the debit is 1,000, the credits are coming in as 1,420. So debits do not equal credits. Okay, so the gross value is not equal to the sum of VAT plus net. So what was done does not give rise to this value debit equaling the sum of credits. Okay, but that means we have a problem in the trial balance. In this instance, the debits of 1,000 are much lower than the credits of 1,420. So we would have a trial balance where the debit column is less than the credit column, so you would need a suspense account to balance that. Okay, so that's going to give rise to this problem here. So this transaction number 5, it needs a suspense account adjustment. Transaction number 3 also needs a suspense account adjustment. The others need other types of corrections, but they don't need a suspense account adjustment.